to the Chris Beatties podcast. That's me. I'm Chris Beatties, editor-in-chief at Growertalks magazine. And in this series of podcasts, I'm going to introduce you to some of the winners of our annual Growertalks Young Grower Award. I'm going to pick their brains about what they love about the industry, their daily challenges, their triumphs, their failures, best decisions, and their dumbest mistakes. And hopefully we'll get some words of wisdom from them too. I hope you enjoy it. Today, my guest for this series of Young Grower Award winner podcasts is Zoltan Kovacs. Zoltan was our fourth Young Grower winner way back in 2008. Zoltan, you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Just like it was yesterday.
Yes, it was.
That was a long time ago. What do you remember what the emotions were? Not only competing, you were up against, I think, maybe 3 or 4 other finalists. But when you heard your name announced as the winner.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably one of the most exciting moments in my life in the industry, because 2008 I was here only 13 years, as a student, and then going up and up, in the ranks of the horticulture. So yeah, I mean, of course, it was super exciting. Yeah, I think that's pretty much one of the best awards you can have in a green industry. Because I see other awards, but I think those are very diluted because like too many people receives it at once and so much. And this is really a one winner sort of deal, and you cannot prepare for it. It's basically the industry was looking at what you have achieved so far. You couldn't prepare, so like for a Formula One race or something, it's what you have done in the past. So yeah, it was super exciting.
There you go. Well, there's only been 21 winners in 21 years. You're one of them, and thank you for sticking with horticulture, because the idea is we find a young person under 35 who seems to be making horticulture their career, and I'm glad you didn't go off into the bakery business or start selling shoes or cars or motorcycles are also a passion of yours. I know that you could have wound up over there. So I'm glad you're still here in horticulture, and you've had an interesting career. Where are you now? Let's work backwards.
Yeah, let's work backwards. I currently still live in Connecticut, which actually I did change states only once. I moved from Massachusetts to Connecticut in 2003. And right now I work for Think Plants Express Seed, which is a very similar perennial company than my previous job, except we represent, I think now 26 participants in the Think Plant Perennial program. So we have a lot broader range of products because we work with the TC, bare root, seed, vegetative perennials. So it's a very, very interesting and good company.
Yeah, you're sort of marketing other companies' genetics through Think Plants. You're not doing any growing right now, right?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. So I never stopped doing growing because I'm responsible for growing all the show plants for Think Plants. And we definitely grow a lot of trials out. And besides that, we have trials all over the country. I also grow a lot of material at my house every year. Probably 150 plus pots every year for trials, because I cannot talk about a product which I don't know. So yes, it's a little bit more challenging with Think Plants because we have so many trials all over the country. But yeah, I'm still growing, and I will grow probably the rest of my life plants. It's just
you're right. I feel the same way, having been a grower for a short time. I don't like to talk about a plant that I haven't grown before, at least in my own garden, let alone in a garden.
Right. So it's not really, it is a marketing platform, but I also do the grower support for technical information, because I've been growing perennials for over 30 years. So doing a lot of technical support, and then also a lot of sales support, building programs, bringing in new participants for Think Plants, working with breeders. What's fun about this also, I'm building like breeder profiles for certain breeders, what to breed in, why is it good, better, or different product, obviously, and what is the breeding target for the future, what I'll be looking for, because unfortunately, breeding became so big in the past, I would say 10 years in perennials. There's a lot of Me Too product and not a whole lot of exciting product. So, we need to find this new product which actually fits the market because if you look at a category just salvia, we don't need a new blue salvia because everybody has one. But if something revolutionary or something, it flowers 3-4 weeks earlier, or it flowers through the whole summer, or bigger flowers, or tetraploid, or so I'm working with also breeders to build these future breeding goals. So we have more targeted breeding instead of just introducing another blue salvia.
Yeah. Now I think kind of uniquely have always been focused on perennials.
Yes.
You've never veered away from that over into annual plugs or any tropicals or anything
Well,
like that.
I did grow annuals for a period of 10 years, but that was sort of a side job. And I stayed with perennials pretty much since 1995. And as I get older, of course, I start growing some tropicals and some veggies and herbs as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
But as a job, yeah, it was pretty much all perennials,
Yeah.
yes.
Your previous position was with Doom and Orange,
Yeah,
perennial technical specialist there.
actually, product manager. So Duman was an interesting company. When I was hired, Duman did not have a perennial program. And that was my primary job, to build a perennial program. When they hired me in 2013, they just bought Bartles Tech. So the only product we had on market is Flux Flame. And we had to build an extensive perennial program. And I think in course of the 11 years I was there, almost 11 years, we introduced over 200 varieties from new breeding. And of course, right now, Duman is very strong in perennials, but it took a
Yeah.
long time to build a breeding program. So we started pretty much from ground zero at Duman. We had to build a breeding program, breeding profile, parentage, goals, and whatnot, what we're breeding for. And yeah, it's a long process. So
Yeah. Before Dooman, where were you?
I was working for a nice medium-sized greenhouse called Michael's Greenhouses. He hired me actually to build a perennial program because he was also strictly an annual grower.
That's in
And
Connecticut, right?
yeah, it's in Cheshire, Connecticut. Very nice operation. He's still a good friend of mine, and he does a great job with annuals and perennials. And yeah, he branched out to perennials, and of course, he needed some extra help in production planning and all that buying. And so I took over those jobs. That was like a 5-year job.
Hmm.
Yeah. And actually, he hired me because I became a young grower of the year in 2008.
The dreaded, and this is, we always think maybe some bosses won't nominate their good employees because they'll be poached. While you mentioned that, so before that, you were at Sunny Border Nursery.
That
This
is
is you. Whoop.
yes.
Do you remember? Look at that
Yeah. That was
beautiful
a
thin young man there, huh?
yeah. That was a long time ago. Yes.
2008 at Sunny Border Nursery when you
Yeah.
won the award. You were um, perennial grower there as well. But your first job, you're from Hungary, correct? Let's back up to
Yes.
right where, and you came from Hungary as an exchange student. Is that right?
Yes.
In
Exchange student. Yeah.
1995,
That is correct. That is correct. I
and you
came.
came to Mahoney's Nursery
Yes,
in.
that was my first job. So basically, 30 years I had, I think, what is it, 4 jobs, fifth job right now. So I did not change jobs too often. Yeah, I started as an exchange student in 1995. Went through 2 exchange program. One was Worldwide Farmers Exchange, and one was the UMass program from University of Minnesota, which actually I did twice. That program I did it for 3 years, 1.5 and 1.5 year. Yeah.
Mhm. So Mahoney's was an interesting thing about Mahoney's, which is in Massachusetts. They're a retail grower.
Yeah.
Is our most current, the 2025 Young Grower Award winner works at Mahoney's right now.
Yeah.
Isabella
It's
Chamois.
about tomorrow. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and she is a perennial fanatic as well. So she is kind of
Right.
following in your footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, Mahoney's is a great company to start working because it's, first of all, it's 8 locations, I believe now, and they're still growing perennials. They have location in Winchester. They can grow perennials. So they don't only retail, they grow, and they have a dedicated growing facility in Woburn, Massachusetts. So they do a great job there too. So it's a company you can learn growing and retail, high-end retail, because Mahoney's are a high-end retail garden center. Yeah.
Now, what was it like coming from, you were 22 years old, I think, coming from Hungary, former uh, Soviet bloc country, not too many years democratic now, and you came to America. What was the culture shock like?
The culture shock is definitely was there for probably the first 10 years. So for, yeah, that's, you cannot adjust to these democratic and, free speech and whatnot countries just overnight. It was a huge culture shock. During communism, everything was dictated. Even they dictated where you can travel, how long your vacation can be, and which countries you can. We used to have two passports actually, one blue and one red. And the blue passport, I believe, that was for communist countries. You can travel, I think, 3-5 times a year, and then for the Western Bloc, you know, basically capitalist countries, you could travel once every 3 years. So that was very dictated. Yeah.
And I think you told me when I first interviewed you way back then for the story, you knew like 2 words of English.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yes
did not.
and no.
I did not speak English when I came over. That is correct. So, but because I was in an environment where nobody spoke Hungarian, so I picked it up pretty quick, about 6 months.
Yeah, and you also told me that you hated America at the beginning.
The very first year I did, and I tell you why, because we worked so many hours. So we worked through this worldwide farmers exchange program, and they paid us like $2 an hour and $4 overtime. So, and of course they provided us housing, but yeah, that wasn't really the best either.
You were low priced. I won't say slave labor, but
Yeah, we worked over 100 hours a week, and I remember my very first year, out of the 365 days, I worked 364.
oh
So
Lord, yeah.
yeah, so it was not. I said, if this is America, maybe it is not for me. But then I went home for a few months, and I came back with a lot better student program, the University of Minnesota student program, and we were treated a lot better, obviously, and then started to obviously love this country and start climbing. And they asked me to run the perennial department in Winchester at Mahoney's. Then I was running the whole greenhouse and the perennials. But retail is very, very strong hours and extremely extremely long hours. So I wanted to get out of retail, and that's when I applied for a job. Actually, Sunny Border asked me to work for them. I did not apply for a job. So because I was one of the best customers, and they asked me if I'm interested only perennials. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Isabella likes the retail. She loves working the weekends. You discovered I like growing. I get my weekends to myself usually.
Right. I mean, when you're young, and as I said, I did it for 8 years straight, 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. So yeah, you a little bit burned out, and you find your sort of niche, what you want to do. And that was my perennial niche, was to grow perennials and work with breeders and all that stuff. So yeah.
What's it about perennials that attracted you?
So perennial business back then was a very sidelined, very niche market. Only these true gardeners actually grew perennials. It wasn't as commercial as these days. Perennials are these days just as like annual, very, very commercialized and whatnot. That time was like a very specialty area to work in perennials, because not a whole lot of people knew about them. And of course, it wasn't easy to learn either, because there was a lot of varieties, and mostly old varieties. Back then, there was no true perennial breeding. People find sports, and if you had 3 new introduction, 5 new introduction a year, That was a lot, and now every breeder has 50 new introduction a year. So it was a very interesting business back then.
Yeah,
So
and Connecticut's certainly a great place to get introduced to it, zone wise. You know, and
yeah,
the growers and the plant collectors there. Maybe not so much breeders, but some of the like White
yes,
Flower Farm and places like that. So
exactly. They're
yeah.
still actually. I just seen them a couple of weeks ago. We are friends with Rob since I don't know 2003, I guess. So over 20 years, 22 years. Yeah. So perennials was back then was a different animal than right. Annuals were always the majority of the business, and there was a very few specialty perennial growers back then. Oh, Connecticut was only Pride's Corner Farm. Just I do perennials. Then we had Sunny Border, and we had Plant Group, and that's it. And now
Mhm.
we have a lot more perennial companies, obviously. So,
So let's go all the way back to Hungary pre 1995. How did you discover horticulture?
so that's a funny degree. I went to a specialty high school, which is actually a 6 year high school. You can earn a degree, and I had a degree in chemical engineering. Plus, besides a 6 year high school, I went an extra 3 years college for the degree in Hungary. Because actually, chemistry was my favorite thing since I was a kid. I had my own little lab. My mom worked for the largest chemical company in Hungary, so I got all these lab equipment and everything. But that time, communism ended in 89 to 91. And, people don't realize when Hungary changed and being not communist, that doesn't work like that. You can't just, that's not a switch you turn it on and off.
Mhm.
So it took probably Hungary from 89 till, I would say, 2003 until it's changed over to sort of like a free capitalist sort of country, but there's still a lot of communist elements in Hungary today. So it's you can't turn these things. It needs about probably 2-3 generations until everything is changes. I mean, you can see all still old communist politicians and whatnot, and some of the behaviors in Hungary and some of the methodology, how they think and how they react to things. So yeah, I mean, Hungary was back then was still a stone cold communist country, even when I left 1995.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it had stayed communist and you'd been a chemist, you'd have worked for the government probably or a university or
Oh,
something.
so no, not really. What I forgot to tell, because of the change of the regime, the chemistry business went to really down to like nothing. We had one of the leading chemical factories in Hungary, and the whole industry took a huge nosedive. And basically, I would have worked for big chemical company making almost nothing money wise and no career change. And actually, the chemical companies just start to come back maybe about 10 years ago, being nice size and very profitable. So basically, I could have just stayed there. I mean, a chemistry industry and be nothing, because I'm 51 years old right now, and probably now I could get somewhere in the chemistry industry, which is too late.
That's a
Which is
long time to wait
yeah.
for the
So you want to
industry to
work
come
for
back. So
20 years from you.
how'd you discover plants then in horticulture?
So this college I went to, it had also horticulture program, and it was actually a very nice program. And I looked into it, and because I had already a chemistry degree, I didn't want to go more and more into chemistry because of the industry. So I switched to horticulture, and actually agriculture horticulture mix, because that time there was no true horticulture. It was agriculture horticulture mix, and that's how I proceeded. And then yeah, that's why I did the two program at University of Minnesota, 1.5 year each time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would think in a communist country, food would be more important than flowers and foliage.
Yeah, and you know that's a funny thing because it is. But right now, if you go back to Hungary, they have just as beautiful garden centers than the U.S. But yeah, that time horticulture was just coming on as private companies started to buy greenhouses, growing plants, retailing plants, because during communism everything was controlled by the state. So every
Right.
business was controlled by the state, and I saw a really nice upswing in the horticulture business. But then I stayed here, so it didn't really matter because the horticulture business is probably really the leading in a world in the U.S. So I guess I stayed here, and then I'd never regretted.
Yeah, yeah.
Although,
I've been to the Czech Republic. I've not been to Hungary, but I have been to Czech garden centers, and they have really, in the last 30 years, embraced capitalism, and the garden centers are, as you say, as good as you would find here. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So you're a U.S. citizen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
long time,
long
long
time.
time. Yeah, I'm one of the few people, and I started at my own is 1995 with student visas, then work visas, then green card, and I did everything 100% by the book. Became a citizen, and even in the 90s, it cost me the whole process about $30,000, which was a lot of money back then. It's still a lot of money, but back then was a lot of money. And then it took me from 1995 to 2014 to become a citizen
Wow,
because, as I said, I did everything by the book. And
almost 15, 14 years.
yeah, and
No, no, almost 19 years. 19 years. Yeah.
so and then yeah, my immigration file is probably like 7,000 pages, but everything was done by the book, so I'm happy about that too.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're here. So
Yeah.
you've had an interesting career. Still got plenty of years left. It's hardly over, but have you had a favorite job so far of all of them?
Favorite job? Actually, my current job is probably has the most freedom. And reason being because Express Seed, still a family-owned company. See, I do not like to work for this big corporation. And be honest with you, when I started with Duman, it was still owned by the Duman family in Germany. It was really, really a great company to work for until about 2000 and so I would say 5 years, 2018, and we became, big corporation and corporate politics and positioning and all that. So I love Express Seed and Think Plans because it's still a family-owned business, and you have a lot of freedom. Obviously, you have to do your job. And what I never seen before in my life, Express It is a company who cares for you. I mean, I got a phone call from them to take my vacation, because I have too many vacation accumulated. I never heard a company, care about employees, take your vacations sort of deal. And they take care of you at every level. Anything we can ask for, and it's just a super easy company.
And Think Plants, I guess, is still a little bit of a startup, and you've done very well with startups in the perennial world.
I think Plants is not well. It's a young company. I
A
think.
young company, yeah. Let's
Yeah,
put
it
it that
started
way.
2018. I think 2018 or 19. It is relatively young, but it's a very good company. I would say it's a very good structured company because it's only a few of us, and we achieve a lot of sales with only a few of us working for Think Plants, which is great. It's really like a more family atmosphere, and we don't have people sending us, emails who is not part of Think Plants. Besides customers and Think Plant employees, I don't get Express employees sending us instructions or something. We are the experts in Perennial, and that's how we are getting handled by Express. So it's very nice.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
super easy.
So thinking back from 95 or excuse me, 2008 when you won the Young Grower Award, but going back further, really, um, you've probably made some good decisions and some bad decisions in your career. What's one or two of the good decisions that you've made?
A good decision I made. I started to work for Dooman, so I could get actually a lot broader spectrum of plant breeding, and I started to travel Europe and worldwide pretty much, and people got to know my name, and I grew a lot of product, and I got to know the entire industry, especially the top players in the industry. And obviously, coming to ThinkPlant was the probably even better decision because Dooman was so corporate. When I left it, I just couldn't stand it. So good decisions. These are really good decisions because I work a lot, but I also can find free time for myself. And when you start turning over 50, quality of life is very important also.
Hmm.
You know, money is nice. Yeah, you need to have money, obviously, but quality of life is probably even more important.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that near the end here a little bit too, because I know that's interesting to you. How about bad decisions? Any regrets along the way? Missed opportunities, maybe.
You know, be honest with you, I'm pretty sure there are bad decisions, but nothing comes to my mind because when it comes to a job or industry, I don't make decisions very lightly. I I think about it months, sometimes 3 to 6 months. Even if I buy something expensive, I don't just buy things. I think about for a long time what is it gonna do for long term, short term, whatnot. So bad decisions. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm a pretty positive person overall, and I can't think of anything because if I look at the jobs, it's all out to progressing in life, right? Mahoney's, I learned retail and growing a little bit. Then Sunny Border, I learned growing everything pretty much, perennials and some annuals, and then learned the independent garden centers, obviously at Mahoney's and Sunny Border, and then Michael's introduced me to the large retailer, the Home Depots, the Stop and Shops, and all that. So I learned that part, and then Doom and I pretty much learned about perennial breeding in depth. So I kept progressing, and I'm not saying it was a fast progression, but I never wanted fast progression because I always wanted to feel comfortable in my skin when I talk about something I know 100%, or if I don't know, I will find a person who will know the answer. So I can't say I have really many regrets. I mean,
That's good. Is there any unfinished business? Anything you want to add to your repertoire?
so again, I'm on the age when I know pretty much everybody in the industry, especially the top players. They know me. And when they hired me at Team Plus, they asked me what kind of title do I want, and I said, I really don't care about titles anymore. I know what I'm doing. Uh, I know what I'm expected of me, and I had every title I need. I was vice president of operation, head grower, whatnot. So I really don't need titles anymore because you know what? It's not going to change. A title is not going to change anything in my life anymore.
Hmm.
It's. I rather do a good job than I see a lot of people making a mistake. They just want more and more and more and bigger position to a point when the job becomes diluted and they start not doing 100% job. It's
Hmm.
because they just took on too much. And I always we tell this to young people who is coming into industry when they ask for advice. Uh, you know, like new product managers came into my previous jobs, and I had to interview them, all of them. What to do, what not to do, and what to watch out for. And this positioning is just, to me, it's funny. I'm at as I said, I'm at that age. It really doesn't matter what title I have.
Yeah, but did it matter at one time though?
It did. When I was young, obviously, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
so
of course. Yeah.
absolutely. And I don't blame the young generation for that, but it's funny they think they have a title and they know more, which they don't. But of course, we were the same thing at 25. We thought we know everything. And, looking back, we did not, obviously. So,
No,
but
a
yeah,
fancy title just means a lot of responsibility to live up to.
right, right. And, this young generation will learn, over the years. It doesn't come, experience doesn't come in 2 years or 5 years. It needs 15, 20, 25, 30 years of when you find out you still don't know everything. And I always say smart people learn every day and stupid people know everything, right? So
That's right.
to this day, you're learning every day.
Yeah.
So
What's your favorite part of your current job that you get to do?
favorite, talking to breeders, new product development. That's probably my top thing. Uh, develop new breeding programs for these breeders and help them find the direction in breeding and see what's out in the market and how we can do better. So that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Yeah,
The second,
you're not just growing plants now. You're getting to influence the next varieties that are coming into the marketplace.
yeah. I mean,
Pretty powerful.
that's that was my plan from the beginning. And with team plants, it goes a little bit slower because it's mostly third party. It's all third party breeders, not mostly, it's third party breeders. So the influence is a little bit less, but these breeders actually know me more and more, and they trust me with my opinion. And I did huge write up about what to breed with and parentage and what to look for, breeding goals and whatnot. So that's fun part of the job.
Plus, you get to see the cool new plants before anybody else.
Yeah, we got to see the cool new plants, and then the other thing is working with growers to develop programs. I think in a year and a half I'm with team plants, I probably wrote close to 100 perennial program to customers, and they trust you. And some of them are big perennial customers. Hey, we would like to have a full perennial program, a 2 gallon. This is the finish date. I love to write perennial programs for them, and the
Yeah,
whole growing
it's not just a
instruction.
matter of put in some hostas and some daylilies and
Right. It's the writing the whole protocol, when to start, where to buy, what varieties to use, how many plant per pot, the whole growing protocol, EC, PGR, temperature, whatnot. So I love to do that. And yeah, I did a lot of new programs in a year and a half for sure, or 2 years actually now.
a lot of now. Um, do you have any proud moments in the greenhouse or out in the nursery regarding a crop?
When you're a grower, you always have proud moments, and you have also some not so proud moments.
I'm going to ask about that too.
Yeah, so the most challenging was Sunny Border because Sunny Border grew over, 4,000 varieties, and you can't get 4,000 varieties right. But you can get, I would say, 95%. So that's when you're always proud. And when you develop programs, proud program, for example, when I built the first ever perennial combos in 2016, and you've seen them probably at California Spring Trials. We had some absolutely amazing perennial combos.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever even talked about perennial combos before that. So that's, I would say, that was a very proud moment when, I was the first person to think of perennial combos and
That was for
using.
Dooman. You did that.
Yes. So, and then everybody started to work on it. So, yeah, I pretty much pioneered that program, and I still look at perennial combos other companies building, and they're using such a similar recipes. They start changing a few things here and there, but the basic idea is the same. So that's a proud moment.
All right, let's go the other direction. Epic failures out in the nursery.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always start grow. I always start growers, Chris. I killed millions of plants. So, you cannot become a good grower if you don't kill millions of plants. So,
any one incident stand out in your mind, though?
Yeah. Like back in 2004, we changed the soil mix to a local company because we could save, $30,000, $40,000. And actually, the bark wasn't composted 100%. And also it had too much ammonia in the soil. So we killed probably 100,000 plants before we noticed it. So yeah, that wasn't really great. Yeah.
Don't they say trial it on a small number first?
Yeah, and we did, and the small batch was perfect. But when the commercial batches came, maybe writing, crushing, and all that stuff. So yeah,
I have my own stories, but I'm not going to tell them here. Sorry. So,
yeah.
well, something else we talked about back when I interviewed you in 2008 was I was traveling to Europe a lot, still do, noticing the plant quality difference, maybe not quality, but uniformity. And you commented on what it was like as a European plant person compared to the way we do it in America. How are you today as a European, former European, with American plant quality versus European plant quality?
So Europe has different standards, and in Europe, if you look at the big growers, a lot of them are specialized to a few crops only.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I met a guy in Germany. He did nothing but 3 million dianthus and two other crops, right? So the quality is picture perfect, obviously, because he had to develop a protocol for three crops. But then you look at the US, look at big companies, and they grow annuals, perennials, tropicals. So obviously, it's very hard to compete in quality with Europe. And Europe has different sizing also. But overall, I can tell you this is the biggest difference. So I keep telling my colleagues at Think Plants, growing for shows when you have to grow everything, a huge hodgepodge of items from every breeder, it's very, very difficult because it's all coming different forms. One is lighter, one from URC, different requirements, different breeding. And then you look at like a Canadian grower who does like creekside greenhouses, they do only hydrangeas. Of course, the hydrangeas are the best on the market because that's all they do, hydrangeas, right? But when you have to grow 45 different genus for a trade show, so you have to pick your environment, soil, fertilizer. It's just you cannot grow everything perfect for trade shows because of that. So that's the difference between Europe and the US.
Mm, yeah.
I mean, overall, we do have a really good quality plants in the US, but when you specialize something, you always have better quality. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get some advice from you as a former young grower, now a middle-aged grower.
Right.
You've had a lot of bosses. What makes a good boss, and maybe what makes the kind of boss that makes you want to leave?
So that's a hard to answer question for me because I got along with everybody. I really never had a bad boss, I have to say. I had some challenging people in my career, and I heard this from other people because of my personality. That's why I don't feel it and I don't get stressed and, I don't get into huge fights and whatnot because for some reason, some people even say I have a very intimidating personality, which I don't know. I think I mellowed out a lot already. I don't know if I can mellow out anymore, but so I don't know. Even the toughest people at Dooman or Express, I have no problem talking to. So I've never been intimidated by a person, so I have no problems talking to anyone. And so it's hard for me to answer these questions.
No, that's okay. One of the words, I wrote a couple of words down that came out from the judges of the Young Grower Award. One was confidence. You seemed to be very confident back then. The other two were passion and enthusiasm.
Yeah, and I do still have these traits. So definitely all three of them I have. And the fourth one is experience. So even in my current job, there's very few people who has this kind of experience in perennials. So they respect that. So to me, it's very easy to work with people because I also can admit when I don't know something, but I said always, I find a person who does, right? I'm not the biggest host expert, but I'm a friend with one of them, Noah Schwartz. If I have a host question, I ask him. So
another Young Grower winner, coincidentally.
yeah, it is funny. Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
And actually, he's a funny story about Noah because I don't know how many years ago, it's going to be 15, 20 years ago. when his current company asked me to have Noah's job. And even then I said, you know what? I'm not the right person for the job, but I know a guy who is the right person for the job. So I did not want to take that job because I was just wasn't the right person. And I think it's also because I easily admit if I'm not the right person to do something, people respect that because I really don't like people, they're good at everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because there's no such thing as good at everything. I know my strength and I know my weaknesses. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
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 So, for the next young growers out there, the people just getting into the industry, maybe they're still in college or thinking about it, have any advice or tips on how to have a successful, interesting career like you have?
Chris, I always said the very first thing to every product manager I had to interview and help them started my previous jobs and whatnot. The very first lesson I learned, don't ever create enemies in the industry. And it's very hard to do because, I'm competing against Duman now. I'm competing against this company, that company, and you try not to be friendly with them. And it's actually the wrong approach. You have to be friendly with everybody because you never know where you're going to end up. And I'm a perfect example. I worked for Duman and I loved it until it was a family owned company. And then I started to hate it. And if I would have been unfriendly with Joey at Think Plants or Express Seed, I would have never had this job. And I was always extremely cautious, high react with Express Seed and Think Plants, but I was always respectful and we had a few laughs and I acted very professional. So do not create enemies in this industry
No,
because
you're
this industry
exactly
is
right.
small enough.
I give
Yes.
I give the same advice. I just say don't burn any bridges
Do not.
because you
Yes.
never know who you'll be working for or with.
Exactly.
If you were 20, 22 again, looking at our industry, what opportunities do you see now? Would you do the exact same thing, become a perennial specialist, or do you see uh, other more interesting opportunities for the next generation?
Uh, you could always do better. So there's no person in this industry who couldn't do better. Uh, I would say, listen and learn, obviously. And hmm, because I went through this progression, which we discussed already, to me, that was the path, right? But I'm pretty sure there are different paths out there which would work just as well or even better. I mean, out of college, maybe instead of starting for a smaller business, start for a medium size or even a bigger business. But then your opportunities sort of limited because if you start with a big company in the very beginning, they're not going to put you in a leading position. But yeah, you could do it faster probably. I would say yes, but I do not regret what I did because that's what gave me the experience of retail, small time growing, bigger growing, a lot bigger growing in genetics because I climbed through this ladder, right? I did
Mm-hmm.
not just jump on top of the ladder and yeah.
Yeah, but you were on the same ladder the whole time. So, do you have a favorite plant?
Yeah, it's not a perennial. So it is so funny. About 2-3 years ago, I started to grow these really cool tropicals because perennials I see every day, and I see everyday trials and growers, and I love perennials. So besides the point, but these new cool tropicals coming into the market, and I mean, I have some plants plants growing this year in my backyard. It was most amazing looking plants. Of course, I try to grow these plants as the highest quality ever. And there's a collocation called redemption. I mean, people were just navigating to that plant because it looked fake. It was so beautiful and so perfect. And yeah, tropicals are sort of like a new trend for me, just as a hobby.
Yeah. Well, hey, those are perennials for us Floridians, so
Right,
it's still a
right,
perennial.
right. That is correct.
All right. So when you're sick of perennials, what do you do for fun? What do you do to escape
So
this
I
rat race?
I had a lot of hobbies in the past, fishing and hunting, but it sort of fell off in the past few years, and I started to be interested in old motorcycles and cars, and especially in Maseratis, actually, because I feel I hit the age 50 when I cannot learn everything, so I want to specialize in Maseratis. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
I've seen some of those on Facebook. Maybe
yes,
we'll pick up a picture or two and slot it in right here so people can see
sure.
what you're collecting. Maseratis, those are $500,000 cars, though.
No, 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 they're not that much, and not that much. They are expensive. They are high-end cars for sure, but also like to collect the rare Maseratis, which is the over breed. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's hobby right now.
yeah, very cool. Well,
And
Zoltan, here's something else I learned. Zoltan Kovacs seems to be an unusual name. You're the only Zoltan Kovacs I know. But if I Google the name Zoltan Kovacs, there's someone who's a Hungarian politician and the spokesman for the Hungarian prime minister. Any
yeah,
relation?
no, uh, it's a pretty common name. Pretty common name. Zoltan came from the Turkish Sultan because Hungary was invaded by the Turkish in the 14th century.
Sultan
So it came from
Kovacs.
yeah, and Kovac is actually my middle name, which I use as my last name because my family, one side came from a noble family, and I had a very long names. And my grandfather still used that long name, and I don't anymore. My father dropped it because it was too long, and yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
Well, Zoltan, middle name Kovacs, you've had a great career in horticulture thus far. I'm glad that your Young Grower Award win helped maybe propel that a little
it
bit.
did. It did a
And
lot.
and I'm glad we're able to keep it going. Thanks so much for sharing this time and these reminiscences. What do you let's see? It's Thanksgiving weekend. Do you do it? And you're in New England, so you've got to have embraced the traditional
Yeah, we do.
Yankee
Yeah,
turkey
we
dinner, right?
right, right. We're gonna go over to my friend's house, and uh, yeah. So it's gonna be a little bit of relaxing. Yes.
Watch some American football, eat American pumpkin pie, all those good traditions.
Yeah, and actually, this is actually the times when I start working my garage and my little projects and whatnot and all that. So yeah, it's
There you go.
great.
All right, Zoltan, thanks so much. We'll see
Thank you,
you.
Chris.
We'll see you at a trade show
Yeah,
or California Spring Trials or someplace down the road.
sure, sure. Thank you, Chris, again.